In traditional medieval symbolism, rabbits were usually seen as gentle and harmless creatures. They represented purity and helplessness, and at times, cowardice, as they would flee at the first sign of trouble. But if you've seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail, you might remember the ferocious killer rabbit attacking King Arthur and his knights. While this scene seems random, absurd, and just as nonsensical as many other moments in the film, it actually has some roots in the dark and mysterious history of medieval manuscripts. At first glance, medieval manuscripts might sound dull, but their marginal illustrations are anything but boring. In fact, they resemble fantasy comics more than serious texts. The margins of these manuscripts often feature bizarre creatures, half-human beasts, and mischievous monkeys. Even in religious books, the margins sometimes include playful caricatures, mocking monks, nuns, and bishops. A particularly fascinating feature of these illustrations is their tendency to turn reality upside down. The artists behind this unique form of medieval humor had their own way of looking at the world, and they expressed it in ways that were both strange and subversive. Traditionally seen as timid and gentle, rabbits were once hunted mercilessly by humans and their dogs. But in these medieval illustrations, they have transformed into vicious killers, violent, ruthless creatures you would never want to encounter in real life. These rabbits might tear open your arteries, strip off your skin, or at the very least, string you up and warn you not to scream as you die. One of the earliest known depictions of a killer rabbit appears in this illustration. An ornate letter T is cleverly used as a gallows, where two rabbits are hanging a human hunter. His identity is revealed by the hunting horn slung over his shoulder. The rabbits stand on their hind legs, pointing at their victim with their front paws, as if laughing wickedly. This image gives us a clue as to why medieval artists portrayed rabbits in such an aggressive manner. In reality, rabbits and hares are harmless creatures, but in these marginal illustrations, medieval artists often depicted a world turned upside down, a world where roles were reversed and the impossible became the norm. So here, rabbits are the hunters, driven by a thirst for revenge against anyone who has wronged their kind. Perhaps the most detailed example of the killer rabbit theme can be found in the Smithfield Decretals, a London illuminated manuscript from the 1340s. This manuscript features a series of marginal illustrations where the story unfolds across multiple pages like a medieval comic strip. In this sequence, we see a gang of large, muscular rabbits carrying out a ruthless revenge against a hunter. First, a rabbit archer shoots the hunter from behind. The rabbits then tie him up and drag him before a rabbit judge for trial. After delivering a guilty verdict, the merciless rabbits haul him away and behead him. But these furry outlaws are not satisfied with simply punishing the hunter. They set their sights on his hunting dogs as well. Hounds were widely used for hunting rabbits and hares, making them prime targets for the rabbits' revenge. In a parallel sequence of events, the rabbits shoot an arrow into a hunting dog, tie it up, put it on trial in a rabbit courtroom, then drag it away and hang it. In the margins of the prayer book of Régnier de Bar, created in Metz, France between 1302 and 1303, some more chivalrous rabbits engage in knightly combat against hunting dogs. Here, they take up lances, swords, and shields, fighting like true warriors. In one scene, a rabbit rides atop a snail with a human head, while its opponent, a hunting dog, rides on the back of another rabbit. The mounting rabbit seems to have just realized that it's fighting for the wrong side, looking somewhat confused. But the rabbits didn't stop at conquering their traditional enemies. Having tasted the thrill of war, they were ready to take on any challenger. Just like the killer rabbit in Monty Python and the Holy Grail, these ferocious rodents could strike fear into even the bravest of knights. They rampage through the margins of medieval manuscripts, swinging axes and attacking anyone who dares to resist them. Even kings are not spared. Given the ruthless reputation of medieval rabbits, the devilish grin on this rabbit baker's face raises some rather disturbing questions about his baked goods. I'd like to believe these aren't meat pies made from humans. So now, we must ask, why did violent rabbits appear in these bizarre, grotesque doodles in the first place? As mentioned earlier, the aggressive rabbits in medieval manuscript art likely represented a world turned upside down, a common medieval metaphor where roles were humorously reversed. This inversion of reality was a familiar concept to medieval people, not just in books, but also in real-life celebrations. During the Middle Ages, several customs revolved around this world upside-down theme. One example was the tradition of the boy bishop, usually observed on Holy Innocents' Day or on Feast of Fools. A young boy, often chosen from the cathedral choir, would be dressed in full bishop's robes, accompanied by other boys dressed as priests, and would perform mock ceremonies and duties. The rabbit's revenge against humans and hunting dogs follows this same theme of role reversal. Even today, this medieval world turned upside down concept still exists. We see it in the world's most famous carnivals, like those in Rio de Janeiro and New Orleans, as well as in modern costume parties and masquerades. A second theory suggests that rabbits symbolize human foolishness. Tying into the previous theory, some believe this should be taken literally. After all, a person would have to be incredibly foolish to be caught by a rabbit. Therefore, the humans depicted in these illustrations must be fools. In Middle English, the term stick hare, literally stick rabbit, was a slang term for a coward. In many of these marginal illustrations, rabbits are shown attacking humans with enormous clubs or even impaling them on sticks. Others argue that these images were simply meant to be funny. Much like Monty Python and the Holy Grail, they could be nothing more than a medieval scribe's attempt to make an otherwise dull manuscript more entertaining. It's difficult to say for sure, but humor seems to be a likely explanation. After all, a group of so-called brave men screaming and running from a killer rabbit is inherently absurd. Not everyone, however, was amused by these grotesque doodles. According to manuscript experts, Bernard of Clairvaux, a French Cistercian monk who died in 1153, dismissed the illustrations in the Decretals as ridiculous monstrosities. Clearly, he wasn't much for humor. He also didn't seem to appreciate cultural role reversals. After all, these manuscripts were produced for the upper class, and considering how many marginal illustrations satirize the feudal hierarchy, perhaps there was a deeper irony at play. So, you could interpret killer rabbits as nothing more than a medieval joke or a reflection of the era's cultural norms. But if we take a less academic perspective, they might also represent an imagined revenge of the weak. Small, harmless, furry creatures striking back at the ruthless carnivores of the medieval world.